Hi, my name is Ken Patrick. I'm a trustee here at Trinity Presbyterian Church in Ludlow in northern Kentucky. Standing outside the building that we purchased a couple of years ago. It used to be a Catholic church by the name of St. Boniface. Not only do we have the building that you see behind me, but as we go through you'll see that we've got another building next door, which is actually an even older building. The building that you see behind me was built in 1916. It is so almost 100 years old at this point. It's actually a rebuild of a building that was built in 1892. So actually the building itself is over 100 years old when we go back to when it was originally constructed. This is now no longer a Catholic church, but it is now the home of Trinity Presbyterian. We began meeting in a building at the Creation Museum out in Hebron on the Outer Belt, quite a ways away. And during that period of time, not only were there families from northern Kentucky, but there were also families from Ohio that were attending the church. As a result, we needed a church that was a little more centrally located than something that was out on one of the beltways around Cincinnati. And so we started looking within the inner city core of Cincinnati for a church that would be suitable and the right price for our congregation. Now, given that we're a small congregation, when we say the right price, we weren't looking for something that was probably going to be an established building, that was going to be a nice building, that was a building that we could just move into and utilize fully. We realized that we were probably going to be buying an older church structure. But we liked that because we thought that an older church structure harkens back to an earlier era where Christians thought differently about how they worshiped. And so we thought that would be more fitting to what we were trying to revive and what we were trying to do. So as we began looking around in the inner city core of Cincinnati, we found this town, Ludlow, and we found this church building. And I think as a group of men, when we came here and we saw this, immediately we realized what the potential was for this building in this community. Not only was it in a good centralized location, but the building fit the kind of style that we were looking for. The only challenge with the building is it's not in that good a shape. I'm standing in front of the building that we call St. Boniface Hall. It's the oldest of the two buildings here on our property. This is actually the original church building built by the German Catholics who moved here in the mid-19th century. The building served as their church on the top floor. The bottom floor was a school, and when the congregation built the large church building next door, this building became solely a school. And it was a school in this community for almost 100 years. It's been vacant for the last 20. It's been stripped of a lot of the details and other things on the inside, but there's enough left in it that we think it's a really cool building. We really like it. Our congregation uses it heavily, and it's the building that we've done a lot of renovations in so far, but there's a lot more that we want to do. So we want to take you inside and show you what we've done and what remains to be done, and why we're excited about what we can do with it in the future. So I'm standing in the front room of the St. Boniface Hall building, which was the old school building. As you can see a blackboard behind me. It shows what it used to be. You can also see the condition of this particular room. We have not renovated this room. It is still one of the large projects that we need to do in order to make this building fully habitable for our church. As you can see on the floor, we've got asbestos tile. We've got bricked-in windows that need to be replaced. There's a lot of things that need to go on in this building. Over to this side, you're going to see a curtain wall that needs some structural repair as well. The floor needs some structural repair. There's no heating in this space as well. You might see behind me some stubs where the radiators used to be. Those were all taken out from scrap metal dealers 20 years ago. So this is a space that we envision as a reading room / library. We'll have books that our congregation and folks in the community can use, other kinds of media. It'll be a gathering place. It'll be a place where we can teach Sunday school classes, and we'll probably have something a little bit better than the wire cart that we have now for our food pantry. We'll probably build a food pantry closet into this space as well. All right, so I'm standing in a portion of the building that we've already renovated. Behind me, you can see what a difference putting in full height windows makes to this space. You can also see that what we're trying to do when we renovate this building is not only make it useful for our church, but we're trying to be sensitive to the historic nature of the structure. So you'll see the fact that we've repurposed doors and windows and other things in the structure as much as we possibly can, the trim and all those kinds of things. We're trying to make it fit with the original structure. In this back space, we have our pastor's office, we have a Sunday school classroom as well. And those are pretty well built out, although there's still some finishes that we need to do, and as you can see in some of the pictures. And the other main thing that we really need for this structure is a heating and cooling system. I'm standing in this space and it's almost finished, but it still does not have a central heat and cooling system. So we're still using space heaters and other things for the space, but we need it. We've got to use these areas right now, so we've got to go forward with what we have. So I'm standing upstairs at St. Boniface Hall. This is a space that we use for Sunday morning worship. We wanted to show it to you because this is a space we spent a lot of time on renovating. When we first bought it, the place was a mess. It was full of all kinds of debris and furniture and everything else. We cleared that out, we painted it, we refinished the floor, and as you can see, we've set it up for Sunday morning worship. The reason why we meet over on this side, especially during the wintertime, is the one space that we can actually heat. There's an industrial shop heater that we have hanging from the ceiling, but it actually works well enough that we can warm this space so that we can worship in it on Sunday morning. We love this space. The windows here on the second floor are beautiful, although you should notice that they're the replacement windows. This is another space where we would love to put in the full height windows, and we think it would make this whole space that much more glorious and useful for us, and beautiful, quite frankly. So you can see behind me, it's a good looking space, it's a great space, and when you see it full of people on Sunday morning, it's a glorious space as they fill this whole room with sound. Hey, I'm standing in one of the original stairwells of the main building that we use for Trinity Presbyterian Church. As you can see, the condition's a little bit rough. This building was originally built in 1892, and it's been largely vacant for the last 30 years, so there's all kinds of debris in here. We've actually done quite a bit of cleanup renovation work in here, but because of the size and scope of this structure, we really haven't started what we want to do down the road with regard to renovations and making this a permanent home for our church. So I'm standing on the balcony of the church, of Trinity Presbyterian Church here in Ludlow, Kentucky. And this is the old St. Boniface Catholic Church, and so it's built in a classic cruciform style. As you can see behind me, the space is spectacular. We've got this wonderful barrel vault that runs the length of the nave up to the transept. And you can see that the nave is lined with some beautiful painted stained glass windows, and the transept has some even larger stained glass windows as well. So it's a beautiful space. It's a space that has obviously been dedicated to the worship of God, and it's the kind of space that fits our congregation very well. This is a space that needs all kinds of additional renovation, even though we've actually done quite a bit to this point. When we bought this building, there was a drop ceiling. That drop ceiling has been removed so that it reveals the entire space behind me. But at the same time, we've had water damage over 50 or 60 years, and so you'll see peeling plaster, peeling paint. The floor has been damaged. So in this particular structure, we need to replace the gutters on this building in order to prevent water damage from continuing. So we need to stop the water penetration. Once that's done, then we can start working on the inside. We need to protect the stained glass windows. We need to replace the floor covering. We need to also heat and cool this space. There is no heating and cooling at the moment. The lighting, the wiring in this structure needs to be completely replaced. As you can maybe see behind me, there are no real lights in this building. This building gets very dark. And so this building basically needs a complete rehab. It's almost a shell at the moment. Now, despite that, this is the place where our congregation worships in the summertime. We love this space. It's a sacred space. It helps us understand our relationship to God. We're the creature, He's the creator. We think this building was designed for that purpose, so we love to be here in the summer. It's a spectacular place as you see the light streaming through the stained glass windows. But we want to make it an even more useful space for our congregation. And so that's why we've taken on this project. So I'm standing in a corner of the transept of Trinity Presbyterian Church here in Northern Kentucky. And behind me is a great example of the kind of damage that we're having to deal with as we restore this building for our congregation. Behind me, the water damage has been taking place over the last 50 or 60 years. There's a bad gutter above this wall, and that water then just cascades down the exterior wall, soaks through, and it separates the plaster from the interior wall. As you can see behind me, it's not just a flat plaster surface, but there's also some decorative corbelling at the top in this vault. And of course, that's all deteriorated to the point where it's fallen off the wall and needs to be completely replaced. So this is is an example of one of the things that we want to do to fix this building. We want to fix that gutter on the outside so that the water doesn't come in. We want to come in and repair this plaster. We'll need artisans to do that, and then we'll paint this structure. Another thing about this corner that I like to point out to folks as they come in is we kind of see this as a metaphor for the church in the United States today. You've got this structure. It's on a solid foundation. It has good bones, just like the church is built on the foundation of Jesus Christ. But it's deteriorating, and it's because people haven't been taking care of the inheritance that we've received. So we see this as not only a metaphor for the church writ large, as also an opportunity for our congregation to restore a building that was built to glorify God. And we hope to put it into such a position that it can go for another 120 years. So right now I'm standing in one of the old vestries just off the apse at the front of the church. As you can see, this room is something of a disaster. There's plaster coming off the walls, windows in disrepair, the doors in disrepair. The interesting thing about this room as well is that the mechanicals are controlled from this room. This is where the thermostats and some of the electrical panels are in this particular room, which are all subject to water damage on a frequent basis. If it had been raining recently, you might have seen a big puddle of water here on the floor. So this is a room that could benefit from new gutters and actually a new roof over this portion of the structure. We envisioned down the road that this room would be used as a preparation room for the morning service. Our elders, the pastor, could come in here and pray beforehand. Other folks in the congregation could come in here and pray. It would make a good counseling space as well. So this is a room that we've got high hopes for renovating in the near future. So now I'm standing in the transept, and behind me you can see the nave of Trinity Presbyterian Church in Northern Kentucky. So this is the structure that we're trying to renovate. And as you can see, there's all kinds of projects that need to be done. We probably need about $125,000 to replace the gutters on this building. We need somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000 to repair the plaster and paint the inside of the structure. We need somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $200,000 to replace the HVAC system in this building. And we need somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $200,000 for the electrical systems and the lighting in this building as well. All told, we think in order to restore this structure to a useful building, so we're not talking about something over the top and all kinds of grandeur, but just to make it clean, bright, and usable year-round by our congregation, we're estimating anywhere between $750,000 to $1 million to put the structure into a usable shape. Now, what you should know is that we're in here anyways. During the summertime in particular, when we're not dependent on heating this particular space, it's so cavernous that it stays naturally cool. And so we do worship in here in this space during the summertime. And you really should see it then as the summer sun comes streaming through the windows on a Sunday morning. It's beautiful. The space is voluminous. The sound is spectacular. This is a great place to worship God, and we want to make it better. So I'm standing out here in the parking lot that surrounds the two structures, the main Trinity Church building and St. Boniface Hall over here on my right. As you can see, the parking lot is another area where we're going to need to do some repairs as well. We've done some resealing to try to preserve what we've got, but we're going to need to dig up this entire space and repave it at some point in the future. So kind of to recap, we've got this main structure which just needs an enormous amount of work to be done on the inside to make it useful for our congregation year-round. And there's the St. Boniface Hall, which needs a little extra in order to get it completely renovated and completely useful for our congregation. All told, we estimate about $1.2 million is what we're going to need in order to restore these two structures. And while that's an enormous number for our congregation, it's not an enormous number for the entire body of Christ throughout the United States. So we're asking you, would you consider helping us restore this building? It's been here for over 120 years thus far. We need to put some money into it so that it can go for another 120 years, so that the people of God can continue to worship Him in this structure, in this space, to be a witness to the people of Northern Kentucky and to greater Cincinnati. So we're asking you, is there a way that you can help us? We'd love for you to come alongside us, join us, restore these structures, help this congregation thrive, and promote the Word of God and the gospel throughout this area. Thanks.